Welcome, my name is Kelly and this is Fanimated, an animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. Brynn is joining me today to discuss the 2002 animated feature film Lilo and Stitch. Written and directed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois, Lilo and Stitch remains a beloved story for many Disney fans. But if you have yet to see this warm-hearted story, here's your spoiler warning. Now let's get started and let's get animated. Hey guys, how are you doing? I'm here with Brynn and I'm super Excuse me, I'm here with Stitch. Brynn couldn't make it, so we have Stitch on the podcast.
Brynn tied up now. It's good. It's fine.
So Stitch, I really just thank you so much for being on the podcast. Can I ask you, you've been living in Hawaii now for a while. What's your favorite part about Hawaii?
There are lots of things to do. So many different shops. I like the toy shop because there are so many models I can make. And some days I really just want to go ahead and destroy them just so that I can get all bad out of me for a little bit.
That sounds good. Yes, yeah, you gotta get all the energy out for sure. Well, that is great. Thank you so much for popping it into the...
What are you doing? What is the time to get back over there?
Hey, Brynn.
Hi. Sorry about that. Kelly, were we gonna do this in like... Oh, that's a... Stitch? Little bugger told me that it was 5 minutes from... Okay.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Brynn, for being here to talk about Lilo and Stitch.
I love Lilo and Stitch. Stitch is my favorite animated character. I don't know if you can tell.
Yes. Yes, I
can. It's kind of funny because I have a character out at Fest that is very much like Stitch.
Yeah.
I would say.
Troublesome. Chaotic.
Just a little. La is no steal. We don't use the S word. Is borrow. Oh, yeah.
She's
a little troublemaker. So
absolutely. Well, I'm also super, super excited to be talking about Lilo and Stitch. I watched this show so much growing up. We had the VHS and it was just on all the time. I loved Lilo. I loved Stitch. I loved Nani. I loved everyone in this movie. And I still do.
Everyone in the movie is gold.
Gold. Perfection. Everything is beautiful and just so tightly written and funny and heartwarming. This is peak Disney, honestly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So you grew up with this movie as well?
Yes. Oh, yeah. No. I'll never forget, I went on a road trip with my friend Brianna, and the entire way there and the entire way back, we had this little portable DVD player, and we watched it all the way there and all the way back on repeat.
Yes.
There was no other thing that we wanted to watch. It was just that. So,
over and over
again. So, that's one of the movies that I can practically just like go ahead and quote along with.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So a quick recap if it's been a while since you've seen it, or if you haven't seen it, please do.
Oh, if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Go watch it.
Stop now, go watch it.
Your heart will be filled with happiness and joy, I promise. Yeah. So yeah, spoiler warning, here we go. Lilo and Stitch follows the escapades of an alien experiment called Experiment 626 and eventually Stitch, who escapes from, the galactic, what do they call themselves?
The galactic something or the fleet.
The Fed, no.
The feds, basically. Alien feds.
The alien authorities, for lack of a better term, escapes from them and ends up crash landing on a little planet known as Earth. And
he took the red one. He took the red cruiser.
Everything in this movie is gold, including his escape, which is a great way to start out that movie.
To introduce his character of an agent of chaos.
Agent of chaos, indeed. And he crash lands in Hawaii. And so he is stuck on Earth on this island. Jumba, his creator and mad scientist extraordinaire.
I prefer evil genius!
Exactly. And Pleakley, the Earth expert, are both out on their adventure to capture Stitch and bring him back. In the meantime, Stitch has been mistaken for a dog, put into a kennel, and then subsequently adopted by a little girl named Lilo, whose older sister thinks it'll be beneficial to her to have, a pet and, a friend, basically, because Lilo is our little oddball.
She's so good.
Just so
She's so good.
And so Stitch basically is using Lilo as a cover, and Lilo is trying to teach Stitch to be good. In the midst of all this, you have Lilo's older sister, Nani, who is just trying to get a job, keep life in balance, because they are being kind of assessed by a social worker, because Nani, being Lilo's older sister, is also her guardian, because their parents are deceased, unfortunately, and so they're just going through a lot, and it's kind of a broken family, as they say in the film, but it's just this wonderful, heartwarming story of, Stitch and Lilo, both these kind of oddballs, don't really fit into where they're at, but find solace in each other, and it's just a beautiful story of platonic love and just family love and just accepting people, and I mean, it's just beautiful and heartwarming and good. So that's kind of your general synopsis. There's a lot of Elvis and a lot of surfing, and it's so good.
There's so much character to this movie, and I think that where to start? Gosh.
Well, let's just start off with this little tidbit. As I was rewatching the film, and it's been a while since I've rewatched it, and it was such a joy to watch again. I remembered that back in the day, little mini Kelly wandering around the school playground, me and all of my friends had the whole monologue that Lilo gives to her hula instructor at the beginning about Pudge the fish. We had that memorized. And so we
gosh, that's amazing.
Quote Lilo and Stitch all the time. And I can't give Pudge tuna. Do you know what tuna is? Fish.
It's fish.
I mean, what a scene. I love it so much. I love Lilo. I just love her.
And there are so many good connections for Pudge. It tells you that Lilo is a little bit off the beaten path, right? She believes in a god's or spirit's system, right?
Yes.
Which is not something that her classmates believe. or that the people at large in her community have followed. It's not necessarily a cultural thing. Maybe it's a cultural thing that she's picked up, but it isn't a norm in her society. So that sets her a half step apart. But also later in the film, you learn that her parents died in a car accident on a rainy day. So the fact that Pudge controls the weather, and she's giving tribute to Pudge every Thursday or whatever, Saturday. No. Every week. It means that she is trying to appease the god, essentially, of the weather and, like, save her and her family that she has left. Which is pretty deep, honestly.
Very. It is when you're looking into it like that. And I mean, you know, obviously Stitch's opening scene introduction to his character is wild and crazy. And I think Lilo's is just as perfect. Like, you get her, you know, having just, you know, fed Pudge and she's swimming back to the beach. You have her taking the picture of the ice cream man, the poor tourist and his mint chocolate chip ice cream. He's basically the Cabbage Man, but in Lilo and Stitch.
And with ice cream.
My ice cream cone. I don't know.
Right. You could practically hear it.
Yeah, you can hear it in the background. My cabbages. Right. And then of course she comes in late to dance. You've got the water everywhere. She bites another girl. It's just immediate. And then this whole monologue about the fish. It's the perfect introduction to her character. And I love her. So we should just go through everything we love about Lilo and all of our main characters because there are so many wonderful ones. And we definitely need to talk about how we were watching the movie and we were trying to like connect everyone with like an alignment.
Yes.
A D&D alignment.
D&D alignments. Yes.
What
oh my
did
gosh,
we choose
I love
for
that.
Lilo?
Well, firstly, going back to the beginning when you were talking about the introduction to Lilo and the introduction to Stitch, they actually are parallel because they both show that they think and act differently than other people's expectations of them. And then they end with, "Oh, they bit me. Does this look infected to you?"
Does this look infected to you? Yes.
And that is the button. That's the thing that, not the button, but that's the thing that really brings those two together and
it's true.
Helps to make that connection that this was parallel. This was showing just how similar these two are. I love that. I love it so much. Does this look infected to you?
And you're the one who pointed that out because like I never made that connection before until you said that. And they are one and the same. Lilo and Stitch. It's Lilo and Stitch. That's the name of the movie. Is Lilo and Stitch.
Right.
They're two peas in a pod.
They're both agents of chaos. And that's why D&D terms, I just love talking about D&D terms because I think that it's really important. So if you don't know, in D&D, there are these alignments that describe your character. And so on the scale of good to evil, you have good, which is like you want to benefit people, usually. Like you're looking out for the world more than anything. Neutral, which is like, it depends on, usually neutral people are like, it depends on what day it is, on how they're feeling, on what their goal is,
what their other motivations are.
And then evil is like, watch the world burn, take it out on others, make sure that other people are suffering. And then you have chaotic, neutral, and lawful. And so when you're talking about chaos, you get chaos. Stitch, Lilo, people who don't follow a set of rules, they're very unpredictable. Neutral is, in between, but lawful is super interesting because it follows a set of rules, or the person follows a set of rules, but not necessarily the law.
Correct. They have their own set of rules that they stick by.
it depends on what law you're talking about, right? And so a villain could absolutely be lawful evil because they are working against somebody using the law of the land. Or if you've ever seen Once Upon a Time, Regina has a very set number of, or no, not Regina, sorry, Mr. Gold, Rumpelstiltskin. He sticks to his contracts. He just doesn't use them for everybody's best benefit, right? He uses it for himself. So Mr. Gold would be lawful neutral to lawful evil, probably. But like Lilo is chaotic good.
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah, I would agree.
Knowing that she's 6.
Right.
But she's compared to her contemporaries, compared to her classmates and stuff, she is chaotic. That's the point that they're making. But she's good. She wants to do good things for other people, right? Whereas Stitch is neutral good, I would argue.
I feel like he starts out evil and then moves towards good throughout.
Yeah.
Because that's his journey. That's his character development.
What makes him evil necessarily?
That he well, as I'm speaking, I'm thinking about the opening scene. He says bad words and makes lasers fire at other people and steals things. But honestly, aren't those all just like either social constructs or laws? So maybe he is just chaotic neutral.
That's what, because he's an agent of chaos. He steals everyone's left shoe. He wants to go and wreak havoc. I'm trying to find the list of things that he says. He's programmed to find large cities, to like reverse
Street
stop signs or
yeah.
stoplights or whatever, which like in the grand scheme of things could be very dangerous. But like, think of him as a little gremlin, like, or maybe gremlin's the wrong word for it, but like, he's just a little sprite. He's a fae of chaos.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
And I think there's an important sticking point of like, that's why I asked what is evil, because a lot of the things that we describe as good are social norms. So a lot of people around Lilo would say that she's not good because she decked someone for making fun of her, right? Or she doesn't make the right choice, but she makes the choices that are off the beaten path, right? So she's not right, or she's not quote unquote good. It's just because she's making different decisions. I don't know. It's just something rumbling up in my head of like, is he bad or is he neutral? Is he aimless?
The argument can be made, I think, because other people describe Stitch as evil or having evil tendencies, but like, is that actually true, or is that just their perspectives? That's a question. Okay, so we have our best duo, Lilo and Stitch. We love both of these chaotic forces. And then next I want to talk about Nani.
Nani!
Because guys, Lilo and Stitch truly still is one of the best representations of sisters in animated media that I have ever seen. And
agreed.
The only story about sisters, centered around sisters, that existed at Disney until Frozen, basically. And I would argue that the story of Lilo and Nani is a better sister story than that of Frozen. Because, I'm sorry, Elsa and Anna are continuously separated. They don't go on a journey together. They go on separate journeys that collide and They touch and go back out once in a while. And even now, after Frozen 2, they are still separated, like physically separated all the time. And they go on their own separate journeys that like just come together. Lilo and Stitch, Nani and Lilo, it's about their relationship. Like, their relationship develops throughout, like, so much more, and they are in it together, like, so closely. And it is absolutely beautiful, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I think that you're right. Like, it's in terms of sister dynamics, and it's more of a sister story. Like, if you had two sisters who were separated at birth, which in Frozen, Elsa and Anna were separated in childhood, essentially, it's still, and they got back together, you could call it a type of sister story, but Nani and Lilo are so much more relatable.
Yes, I
right?
agree. Yeah.
So much more. Like, sisters screaming at each other,
Yes.
top of the lungs, calling each other, like, saying that she'd rather have a rabbit because it'd be quieter than her, and just, like, saying those quippy things to each other and going to scream into a pillow, and then coming back and soothing her little sister after she's calmed down. Like, and honestly, I see teenage mothers in that too. Like, a lot of young mothers who don't know where they're at or how to deal, but also, like, they love their children, but also, like, Nani is a teenage mother, or a young adult mother. She is a single mother, which is an important thing to note, because as much as Lilo says, like, I like you better as a sister than a mother, Nani is playing the role of mother.
She's the adult in this situation.
Yeah.
And she has so much on her shoulders. And it's so interesting watching it now as an adult. Yeah. I connect with her so much more than I ever did as a kid. Obviously, like, even as a kid, I loved them, and I loved, like, how real it felt, because they were, fighting and teasing and, not getting along all the time. And, like, you just, they know how to get, sisters know how to get on sisters' nerves. Okay. That's just the truth. But yeah, watching it again now is just like, wow, this is just, Lilo and Stitch is just the story of unfortunate events happening to Nani. Like, she tries so hard to make sure she and Lilo can stay together. And like, she's, poor Lilo, like, bringing Stitch everywhere just causes so much chaos and wreaks havoc. But Nani is trying so hard to get, like, another job and to, like, just, do what she can for the social worker. But Lilo and Stitch are chaotic, and it's just not working out for her. And it's just so hard when Nani is trying so hard and it's just not working out.
I feel for her. She's... It's so scary and so awful. And when Lilo's being taken away that last time by Mr. Bubbles, and Nani says, I know her. She won't make it without me, because Nani is the only one who can truly see how Lilo ticks at all.
Yeah, and accepts that,
Yeah, and, like, I don't know if you've seen the theory. Was it you who asked, is Lilo autistic? Yeah, but there's a bunch of questions online that's like, is Lilo autistic? And there's a lot of, they never say it, but there's a lot of strong evidence that she is. She stims, she has kind of quirky hobbies, she doesn't always get social cues and things like that, even with her contemporaries. Like, but regardless, she is exhibiting enough of autism for people to pick up on that, then that's an even stronger reason for her to be with Nani, because of those that consistency and those, like, quirks that you have to know that kid really well to understand. Like, Nani is dealing with so much with trying to help Lilo navigate the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
they're just a little family trying to figure it out together, and I love it. And then, of course, we have Nani's love interest, David, who is
Love
truly
him.
the sunshine in this storm.
I love him so much.
So much. Let's be real. He always knows, like, he just understands, like, what these girls are going through.
Yes.
And he is just like, you know what? Let's just go out into the water. You know, like, he just like, he understands, and he knows what they need. You know, he's just like there and supporting in the ways that he can and in the ways that they need, you know, just like emotional and support, and just like, you know, just I really see it as like, wow, he's just such a great guy to like for Nani to like, you know, have support like that.
Well, he supports in the way that they ask, or that she asks, and there's something there, but you know, romantically, but he is not forcing her. He's not like asking over and over again, or saying that she owes him, or there's not this looming feeling of like the nice guy syndrome. Oh, I'm gonna be a nice guy, and then like, because I'm a nice guy, you should like me. It's just simply that they're close. And yeah, at the end, she's like, I don't know what I can do to repay you. He's like, go on a date with me. It's more of a joke because
it's very clear that she is into him and he is into her.
Right. Exactly. And he doesn't say it as oh, well, this is what you have to do. He says it as a very like,
maybe we can finally go on that date, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And so, because you'll have time and you can relax.
Right. Like, I feel like it's already established between them at that point, even though he does say it that way. So
it's just such a healthy, supportive relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Jumba and Pleakley. And let me just say, this duo is so funny. I love them. Everything they do is gold. And they're just a riot. They're great. Because you've got your very chaotic evil and you're very lawful good. And it's so funny.
Yeah. And I would argue that Jumba is chaotic neutral as well, honestly. Because he's kind of like Entrapta. Because he's doing this for science. He didn't make Stitch a killing machine. He made another little agent of chaos.
Another one of him. But I would argue that at the very end, when Jumba's like, great, we're fired, let's do things my way, he has no concern for, like, you know, harming Lilo. Like, Pleakley's the one who's going in and making sure Lilo is okay. Like, without Pleakley, Lilo would have been blown up. So...
Fair. And I would say that touches more into the evil side. Like, he's on more of the spectrum down to evil. But I would still, personally, I'd still say that's kind of in the neutral range. If you were concerned about Lilo's well-being, you'd be chaotic good. He's not. He's not concerned if he saves her. He's not concerned if he doesn't. He's just getting his job done.
All right.
But that's just me. I think that on the Disney scale of evil to good.
Yeah.
He's definitely well, no, because we haven't talked about Shark Dude.
So then let's talk about the actual evil character, our lawful evil, which is Captain Gantu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm really glad that we started talking about the alignments, because we do have everything from chaotic good to lawful evil, because he's quote unquote just doing his job, and quote unquote it's just regulation, but he's absolutely strangling Stitch when he gets the chance, and like fighting with Stitch when he gets the chance, and tearing up the town and doesn't really care.
And is willing to, like, sees Lilo as a little snack for Stitch on the way back.
Right, and it brings him joy to do that as opposed to not caring if he does it or not. And I think that really is the defining trait, or the defining like difference between neutral and evil for me personally, is that like evil wants to do it. Mm-hmm. Neutral doesn't care. Evil wants to,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
he's terrifying. He's just terrifying. Just bulldozing through, doing what,
whatever he wants.
Doing his job and not caring about any consequences from it. And just, there are some other characters too, but just one more. We gotta mention Bubbles. Guys, Cobra Bubbles.
Your knuckles say Cobra.
I love this movie. But yeah, I love what I love is this whole idea that like, oh, we have to protect, like he planted this idea to the Galactic Federation that mosquitoes were an endangered species, and that's the reason you have to take care of. You have to like, make sure you don't cause any harm to the humans because the mosquitoes, drink their blood, and
it's so funny
that they have to protect Earth because, or like, we can't interfere there because mosquitoes are extinct. I love that concept and how that like plays throughout the entire film.
And it's not because I love that it's like a sidestep from the obvious. The obvious thing would be to, say that it was the humans that are, endangered or whatever. No, it's the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
And we are the food source for the mosquitoes. I think that's just brilliant. And I want to know who came up with that because it's just so sideways enough.
It's so good.
From the obvious.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's so well written. This whole film is. So what are some other moments, lines, just, pieces of this movie that are your favorite and that you really want to mention?
Oh, gosh. It's a great question. I really love the beginning because they have actually a kids choir from Hawaii who actually sing that song, Hawaiian Roller Coaster. And they were originally going to do a song in English, and then they were like, no, wait. And so they went to Hawaii and had the children's choir sing this. And even though the producers couldn't like sing along or anything, they were like, yep, that's it.
That's so good. I love that. And while we're on the topic, let's just talk about how authentic this film is. And they're just, they did things very respectfully. And even like my favorite little tidbit is that the voice actors for Nani and David, both of which are of Hawaiian descent. Tia actually is like a local of Honolulu. They assisted with rewriting the Hawaiian characters' lines and like,
which is amazing.
So good that they gave them the space to be like, oh, this would probably be said in this way, or add colloquialisms and Hawaiian slang terms that like would make sense for the culture. And so I just like to give them a voice in the, production is really, really cool and adds to that authenticity.
Well, and it's huge. It's huge because it's, we haven't heard of them doing that from then on until like Frozen 2 or Moana. It's the only way to tell a culture story. And they were originally going to set it in like the middle of Kansas or Iowa, like cornfields or something that Stitch gets stranded in. And if they had, it wouldn't have really mattered. But like, because they set it in Hawaii, which has such a rich culture, like the only way to be authentic and the only way to be good, to have that is to have a native of the place, of the culture, have a hand in it.
Absolutely. So my favorite moments are basically every scene because I just think everything is so well written and so funny and just so charming and so authentic. Everything just feels so real. I do go back to, when Cobra Bubbles is walking through the house for the first time and Lilo is just getting everything wrong and everything is going poorly and she's like, creating voodoo dolls for her friends and like
right.
and
me alone.
Nani everything.
Hits me with bricks in a pillowcase and I'm like, where did she even get that? Is my question.
Good.
Jeez.
Yeah, what is her imagination? And then of course like the fight that happens after that. Like I genuinely like, because it all feels so real, and it's just like, oh, this is the first scene with both of the sisters together and this is what we get, and it's just so well done. And I love them. I love that whole scene. Every gag is hilarious, and then their little fight afterwards is just too real. So
I think my favorite scenes might be in Lilo's bedroom. Especially when Stitch first gets there, she gives him coffee first of all. Second of all, he creates like, what is it? He has like the Golden Gate Bridge and everything.
Yeah, San Francisco.
He creates the entirety of San Francisco and then goes Godzilla on it. And help me. Oh, nah. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And then to get him to calm down, she puts a white lei over him and he immediately gone. Like just goes, wiggles, wiggle, goes stiff and then falls back and flops back.
Yes.
And white leis are a sign of family and love.
Aww.
So, right, because he had never felt love before, he'd never received love before, and it just like knocked him out. There's also it's also interesting because when somebody is in a manic state or a overstimulated state, giving them something to hold on to or to focus on to can actually help them to like stop. But I don't think that that's what they were intending. So
not necessarily.
I as an educator. But I think go ahead.
Nope, I was going to change topic. So
I was going to say, I think also the scene where they're taking back the decision to take him away. So like he's about to go onto the spaceship and he says, Stitch, my name is Stitch. And she's like, what? And he's talking about Ohana and he's just like, do I really have to go? Like the journey, the end of the journey of this movie, because obviously he's got places to go, but like he's been on such a journey to get there, and finding his disposition there is just so rewarding and so good.
Absolutely.
So
I would agree. And just you get to see all of his development. It's so good. And so let's talk about Ohana real quick, because Ohana means family, and family means
nobody gets left behind
or forgotten. And that is the heart and soul of this film, and it's so beautiful. I love that it's like, this quote-unquote broken family, and they're adding new members to their little family, and it's just like how hard it can be, like the reality of how hard it is, and also how wonderful it is, like how much support you can get. And and that poor Stitch is like completely lost without a family, and in a lot of ways Lilo and Nani, they've lost a lot too, and so for them to like find each other, and build their own little family is just really, really uplifting.
And this movie is about all of the loves that romance is not, almost. I mean, like, I would argue that her and David have a beautiful romance that is not like a lot of the romances of Disney movies, but it's about chosen family. It's about adopted family. It's about your sister relationships and love. It's about like friendships, and it's and belonging and having a place to call your own. And I just love it so much.
It's so good, guys. Go watch it.
I just love it. He's so good. Oh, Stitch is just my favorite.
So good. And you're not alone. There's so many people who love Stitch so much. We can't end this episode without just mentioning that the soundtrack is 5 stars.
Yes.
I mean, I used to listen to the CD. We had the CD, and I would listen to it over and over and over again because you got all of this really great like Elvis music and just like all sorts of great stuff and
more Elvis music.
It's so fun. I love the music choices.
Yeah, I agree. And also the back, and if we're moving on to like other artistic choices,
absolutely,
the background was watercolored, and previously there was a long gap in animation, Disney's animation, where they hadn't hand painted the backgrounds.
Yeah, they were using gouache before this. Like that was kind of the staple for the animation industry at the time. And gouache, if you don't know, is another water-based artistic paint, but it is a lot more controllable than watercolors are, and so you can do a lot of not necessarily detailed because you can do that with watercolor, but you can just have a lot more control over the pigment versus watercolor. So they were kind of going back to watercolor for this film, and I won't steal your thunder. You can finish that thought.
No. That was just it. Like, this is the first one that was watercolor instead of gouache. No, but that was it's just beautiful. If you've seen the movie before, rewatching it just for the background painting is worth it.
Oh, absolutely. It's beautiful. Yeah, they hadn't done it that way since like Snow White and Pinocchio. Like, they were really going backwards to like get inspiration for that, which is so fun, and honestly just adds to the like depth and richness of this very cultural film, encapsulating what Hawaii is. It's so great.
Just beautiful and relaxing sometimes. That island feel.
Absolutely. Of course, I have to mention that this was written and directed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois, my favorite animators.
Tell us why, Kelly.
Because they also wrote and directed How to Train Your Dragon. And truly, the Stitch is a precursor for Toothless in so many ways. Like when you watch the scene at the restaurant and Stitch eats both of the pieces of cake and regurgitates them both back up, I'm like, that is the Toothless move right there.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
And just like even the way they look, like they've got the same kind of ears. They both utilize dog-like qualities, although I would argue that most animated animals inhibit a lot more dog behavior because it's just a very clear way for us to understand animal emotion is through like dog language.
Right.
But I love Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois, and they always do such a good job too with telling a lot of story through non-dialogue scenes, and that's the thing I always like to mention with especially Dean DeBlois films. And in this film, it's really that like surfing scene that because you see Stitch, who is like kind of genetically programmed to not want to be in the water and cannot swim, like he wants to be a part of this experience with everyone else. And so he goes and he's like, I want to try. And he's like subduing himself more. And, they're playing in the sand and he's like on his own. And he's basically realizing in the scene that he doesn't want to be alone and he wants to be a part of this family.
It's like the How to Train Your Dragon scene where Toothless and Hiccup first touch. Like
the forbidden friendship scene.
Boopin' nose. Yeah. It's basically that. And what I really appreciate about it is that when you know how to storytell without words, you can use your words so much more effectively. And I remember when we were watching it, you were like, there is not a wasted line in this entire movie.
Yeah.
And it's true, because when you can tell your story without the lines, they have so much more impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it when they can just say so much without any words at all. And it's beautiful. I mean, that's visual storytelling right there. And they do such a great job with it. And I'm just so grateful for their work and for this film and for How to Train Your Dragon. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I can't say enough good things about it.
Honestly, truly. Also, I wanted to mention in my brief research here, I found that, they obviously went to Hawaii to kind of like do some studies and research for the film. And Chris Sanders had said that when they were kind of getting a tour, their tour guide seemed to like know everybody. One of those things where it's like, oh, you just run into everyone and for them, that was kind of like the first kind of idea of the ohana, like family extends beyond your blood relatives, like everyone is your family. And that's kind of it was a really important step for them to kind of focus in on that and make that kind of a bigger part of the film. And so I think it's really cool that here's this film that, like we mentioned, originally was going to be like in Kansas, and then they switched to Hawaii, which then reshifted and refocused their entire story and their entire narrative focus. It just shifted everything into this very Hawaiian film that's very representative.
Stitch was going to be an interstellar gangster originally. Like, and just saying, like, they refocused. They really refocused. Like, he was going to be an interstellar gangster, and Jumba was going to be, like, one of his shunned underlings who was coming to get revenge and stuff. And I'm like, whoa, that's a big leap.
Big leap, for sure. Oh, man.
Right? But I love that that story, and I hadn't heard that before. It makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Yee.
And this other thing I really found interesting is that originally in the final act of the film, when they are in the spaceships and they're chasing after Lilo, she's been captured. Originally, they were going to, Nani and Jumba and Pleakley and Stitch were going to hijack a Boeing 747 jet and fly it through Honolulu. And of course, this film came out in 2002. And so after the September 11 attacks, they changed that. Thank goodness. There are a few other things that have been taken out of the film, including, I think, a really, really fantastic deleted scene that Brynn, tell us what happens in this wonderful deleted scene.
So in this deleted scene, they had storyboarded it and recorded it, but they hadn't animated it yet. And in this scene, Pudge dies. And Stitch sits back and laughs in delight in a very chaotic evil sort of way. And Lilo, of course, is being like, Stitch, help me. Stitch, help. They're because seagulls are going and pecking at Pudge. and they're not in time, and Pudge dies, and Lilo goes over to Stitch, and I think she like pushes him over and says, "Why did you do that?" And she's like kind of throws up her hands and storms away, and he's like, "Wait, what?" And I think that's kind of the first time that Stitch makes that realization that his actions can hurt others, and that hurt affects people,
and there are consequences to his actions.
Right. And so if they had kept that scene in, I would have absolutely said that Stitch was chaotic evil to begin with, and then grew to chaotic good. But leaving that out, they really added some levity to the show and making him more like chaotic, gray, evil, neutral-ish.
Because that scene is dark.
It really is.
Like, oof.
It's on YouTube. You can easily watch it. It is a lot. Like, Kelly and I were watching it. We were like, ow, my heart. My achy, breaky heart.
Pretty deep for a lighthearted Disney film for 6-year-olds.
But because Pudge lives, there is a fantastic fan theory, which is my last piece of trivia. Mm-hmm. The fan theory is that Pudge is actually Maui, the shapeshifter from Moana.
I now accept this as truth. This is the only truth. And Maui really likes peanut butter sandwiches.
This is now canon. So mote it be. Because he's a shapeshifter.
Yes, I love this. I love these fun, quirky ideas of like mixing it all together. So great. So good. So good.
Oh, yeah.
Man, these were the times for Disney. I like right before they were getting too far into the CGI realm, like right before that. So many great films, and this is one of them. And I hope that we've inspired you to go back and watch it, or rewatch it, or watch it for the first time, because it truly is such a joy. And I honestly am tempted to just go rewatch it again right now, because
same.
It's so good.
Honestly,
so good.
It's such a safe, feel-good movie.
So thank you so much, Brynn, for joining me. It was a blast as always.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We'll talk at you next week with Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh, I can't wait.
I'm so excited. Thanks so much for listening. Our music is provided by Purple Planet Music, and the art is done by myself. You can find me on Instagram at CandorDraw. You can email us at fanimatedpodcast@gmail.com or reach out on Instagram and Facebook at Fanimated Thank you, Brynn, for joining me today, and I'll talk at you guys next week with Kate and Laura as we discuss Raya and the Last Dragon. In the meantime, stay tuned and stay animated.
There's this thing called Christmas, and in Christmas, lots of people put up lights, but you can put really, really, really bad words in aliens by putting up the lights in certain ways, and the Earthlings don't know. His favorite thing.
I see you still find ways to get into a little bit of trouble in your own way.